I believe God made a perfect universe. There were no craters on the moon. Everything was fine. And when the fountains of the deep broke open, a cubic foot of rock weighs about 64 pounds. There was probably 10 miles of rock on top of water under the crust of the earth. The Bible says the fountains of the great deep broke open. The earth cracked up like an eggshell, and it still has those cracks today called fault lines all over the world. I believe the weight of all that rock on that water at the beginning of the flood, the earth cracked, that water went shooting out like a missile and would launch rocks up and plaster the moon like a shotgun in 10 minutes, or however long it takes the rocks to get there, okay? So I believe the bigger craters are on one side of the moon, and the other smaller craters on the other side of the moon. Let's see, I've got pictures here somewhere. I didn't know we were going to talk about that, but I believe the bigger craters on the near side facing us were from the direct blast from the Noah's flood, the fountains of the deep launching these rocks up there. They would easily reach escape velocity with that much pressure. It's 30 tons per square inch would be the pressure. And then some of them shot past and drifted around in space, and some of them came back by moon's gravity and hit the backside. The backside of the moon, the craters are very small. And the near side, some of them are huge. Some of those rocks that got blasted off from the earth when the fountains of the deep broke open are still flying around. And we are flashing around, rolling around the sun, and we smack into them like bugs on a windshield, and we're still hitting the rocks that came off the earth 4,400 years ago. So yeah, I disagree on that one. I think the moon was made perfect. It was not made to look ugly with craters on it. I think it was nice and smooth, a shining object, and the flood of Noah and the fountains of the deep made, I'm going to pick a wild number, 95% of the craters made in first few months. A few more have been landing since then. But yeah, I think it all, the flood explains it all.
So I want to kind of give you an open discussion here. It sounds like y'all definitely don't agree on this particular viewpoint. What is your response as far as what Dr. Hovind said, Pastor Anderson?
I think that is probably one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. And let me just give some facts. There are over 5,000 craters on the moon that are at least 12 miles in diameter. And so the type of a meteor that it would take to create a crater that's more than 12 miles, many of them are way more than that, but I'm saying 5,000 of them are more than 12 miles. Well, even just to make a 12-mile diameter crater, you're going to need a projectile at least 1 kilometer in diameter. So when he talks about rocks being shot up into space from Earth, let's just be clear that in order to make one of those craters, even the smallest of the 5,000, you would need a projectile about 1 kilometer in diameter. So you expect me to believe that easily, as he said, rocks were fired at 25,000 miles an hour that were bigger than football stadiums. So football stadium size rocks, and that's not even big enough because it would have to be 1 kilometer in all directions, were shot up at the moon to the tune of 5,000 craters that are over 12 miles in diameter. These are not made by little rocks. They're made by gigantic impacts. And so I think that anybody at home who's watching this with 2 brain cells to rub together realizes that you can't accelerate a 1 kilometer or 1 mile in diameter solid rock meteor into space from Earth using water pressure. That's the most absurd, unscientific garbage I've ever heard in my life.
But this is such a minor point we're arguing about. Here's the whole world dying and going to hell, and we're arguing over craters on the moon. I think this is also where the rings of Saturn and other planets came from. Maybe some of the moons of other planets were blasted off and are caught in their gravitational field and are circling them. Watch the video when we get to heaven.